I hope this is. You know, I'll go like that. Very good. Okay. Okay. Well, לכבוד הרב רמי, לכבוד כל הרבנים. אפשר באנגלית? I can say it in English?
Yes.
No problem.
Okay. No problem. So, I'm going to mention, I was in Lithuania 3 years ago on a heritage tour, and we went to, we went to, I was very privileged to be in Lithuania, and I went on a heritage tour, and I was in Kovno. Our family comes from Mariampol, which is south of Kovno. And I saw loads of, we went inside and we went to the Sugihara, that was the Shagrir, Shal Japan, the Japanese consulate was in Kovno. And we go inside and we see loads of Japanese coming. And they come with busloads of Japanese. I always knew that Sugihara was Hasidei Motalam, he was a righteous Gentile. It never occurred to me, why do so many Japanese come? It's very far for them to come from Japan to Kovno. So I made a movie about our trip, and then I showed the film, and a very good friend of mine who was on our tour, he told us the most amazing story, and it changed my life. So we just celebrating the infamous, not celebrating, we remembering the infamous 1st of September in 1939 when the Germans, when they invaded Poland. A lot of the Yidden from Poland crossed the border into Lithuania. Most South African Jews come from Lita, and what was very interesting, the Lithuanian Jews were not wealthy, but they welcomed the Polish Jews with open arms. So Lithuania was independent, and a lot of Polish Jews were in Lithuania, in the city of Kovno. Kovno was the capital. Hanukkah time 1939. There was a little boy. Have any of you heard of Soli Gano or Soli Genkent? Very, very important. He was 11 years old, Yiddish boy living in Kovno. His parents gave him Hanukkah geld. Lithuania is still independent. Everything's going okay for the Yidden. A lot of Polish Yidden had already come into Kovno and to Vilna. The Mir had already escaped to Vilna. Anyway, his parents gave him Hanukkah geld. The next day, he's alone at home. His mother and his parents were out, and his brother and his sister were out. Two women knock on the door, and they say, is there any money lying around to help the Polish Yidden? So all the Hanukkah geld that he had, he gave them. He did tzedakah. He's walking along the main street in Kovno. It's a big boulevard, Lefkos Avenue, and he sees a persumet for Laurel and Hardy. Laurel and Hardy. It was like Charlie Chaplin, a movie called Laurel and Hardy. Shamin Verazeh. So he wanted to see it. He wanted to see it, but he had no money. So he goes to his aunt. Her name was Anushka. She had a confectionery shop. And inside the shop, he sees somebody with funny-looking slanted eyes. He had never seen an Oriental person before. It happened to be Sugihara. He was in the shop. He was just sent there 2 months before. It's one nace after another. Because why was he sent there? There never was a Japanese embassy in Lithuania ever. But 2 months before Hanukkah, they opened one. Mm-hmm. And Sugihara was fluent in Russian and German, and he was really sent there as a spy to find out what the Germans were doing, and the Russians. The real reason was to save the Mir and the Yidden, that's for sure, but he didn't know it. Anyway, he's inside the shop. Soli tells his aunt that he gave tzedakah, can she give him money to see the film? And she says, with pleasure. Then she goes to the till and she tells Sugihara that this is my nephew, that he gave some charity, I'm going to give him money to see a film. So Sugihara comes up to Soli, and she spoke to him in Russian, and Soli understood Russian. She goes up, Sugihara comes up to Soli, and he takes out of his pocket money to give him. And Soli says to him, I can't take from you, you're not my family. So Sugihara says to him, I'll be your uncle. So Soli says, if you're my uncle, you have to come to our house for Hanukkah. He invites him for Hanukkah. And that changed Jewish history, because Motzei Shabbos, he went with his wife and his son Hiroki and the aunt Anushka. They all went to Soli's parents for Hanukkah. Soli's parents were helping a Polish father and a daughter that escaped from Warsaw. And he was in shock that there was a diplomat in a Jewish home, Hanukkah. It's unbelievable. The war's in Poland. Here you've got a diplomat in a Jewish home in Kovno. And he tells Sugihara how bad it is for the Yidden in Poland. And Sugihara listened. It's the first time he's hearing firsthand from somebody who was mamash in Warsaw. Anyway, a few weeks later, this Polish Yid tells other Polish Yidden that there's this Japanese diplomat that he's got a good heart, that he was at a Hanukkah party, that he was in a Jewish home. So a few weeks later, they all come to the consulate. This is a very famous picture where they all come to the consulate. Sugihara invites them in. There's about 200 people that come to the consulate. Sugihara invites them in. 5 people come inside, delegation of 5. One of that 5 was Zorach Verhaftig. I don't know if you've heard of Zorach Verhaftig. Zorach Verhaftig's father was very close with the Chazon Ish. He wrote a book called Divrei Yerucham, very, very choshev a book. And Zorach Verhaftig was one of those 5. They went inside to ask Sugihara if he can give them transit visas. So he says, to give the visas, I need to get permission from my government. So he telexes Japan 3 times, and he waits, and they say no. And then that night, he telexes them again, and they say no again. And then that night, Sugihara and his wife, Yukiko and Shreina Sugihara, they say, what are we going to do? If we don't help these Yidden, they're going to die like in Poland. So the next morning, he goes outside, and he says, we're going to sign the visas. And for 3 weeks, they started signing visas. They signed over 2,000 visas that saved over 6,000 Yidden. Zorach Verhaftig,
getting permissions from the
against the government. And what was interesting, he knew Mirosh that if he does the visas, he's going to lose everything, and he did lose everything. Him and his wife, they knew that if they signed the visas, his whole future. He was a very promising diplomat. He's going to lose everything, and he actually mamish did lose everything. What happened is that Zorach Verhaftig went to the Rosh Yeshiva of Mir. They had now come from Vilna to Kaidan, and because the Rosh Yeshiva knew his father, who was very close to the Chazon Ish, so he invited him and he said, you have to leave. And he sent Moshe Zupnik with 300 passports. And Moshe Zupnik went to Sugihara. The secretary of there's just Nissim after Nissim, the secretary of the embassy was a German, Wolfgang. And he said he'll never sign 300, but he went and he told Sugihara who he was and from the Mir, and he said, if you sit here and you do it. So together, Zorach Verhaftig, it was Moshe Zupnik, together with Wolfgang, they signed the visas for the Mir. And their son, Moshe Zupnik's son lives in Ramot. I went to see him, Yisrael Zupnik, and he told me that his father told him that he saw Rabbi Kotler. He signed he signed all the visas for the Mir, and that's what saved the Mir. It's unbelievable, because with those 300 passports from the Mir, the whole Mir was saved. It's the only yeshiva that was saved intact. Now there were also Chabad that were saved on these visas. In South Africa, there's 3 Rabbonim that their fathers got visas. One is Yossi Goldman, Weinberg, Levi Weinberg, and Rabbi Bokov. And I went to all 3 of them and I asked them, why did he do it? Why did Sugihara do it? So the whole question is that if it wouldn't have been for this little boy that gave a little bit of tzedakah and did a bit of hachnasat orchim, who knows what would have happened? But how do we know that the story is true? So I'm going to show you something quite amazing. When they eventually, after the war, they found Sugihara and they wanted to pay him. There was a man called Nisri, who was working in the Israeli embassy, and they found him. And it was very hard to find him because he lost his job, he had no money, he was sent to Russia because he was fluent in Russian, that's how he worked. One of his children died, he mamish had no money. Nisri actually found him against the government because the Japanese government made him a person non grata. And they said, we want to pay you, we want to give you. He said, I don't do it for money, I don't want money. And they realized that his son, he couldn't even pay for his son's education. So the Israeli government gave a bursary and his son came to Hebrew University in 1968. And Sugihara came in Israel, at Hebrew University. Sugihara came to visit him and he met with Zorach Verhaftig in 1968. So people say to me, how do we know the story is true? So what happened is that Sugihara was only made Chasidei Umot Olam in 1985. He was already 85 years old. He was too weak to go to Tokyo to get the certificate. But what happened is that was made, and then after it was announced in the papers, and it was a little bit known, but he died the following year. And then his children said, you have to the mother, you have to write a book. She wrote that book called Visas for Life. And inside the book, It is the most amazing book. You can get it. It's on eBay or on Amazon. Inside the book, she has a picture of Soli because they had a kesher. And this is what she wrote inside the book. It's amazing. Rabbi, if you can read it, it's the most amazing. This is inside her book that she writes. You can read it aloud.
Sugihara's decision to issue visas may have been influenced by a 14-year-old Jewish boy named Soli Ganor. He invited Mr. Sugihara to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah in 1939 with his family. This may have been Sugihara's first contact with a Jewish family in Kaunas.
So I'll quickly tell you. So what happened was, in Bayit Vagan, I'm very blessed. In Bayit Vagan, we have I don't know if Chaim Balkin. Chaim Balkin, his father was Shmuel Balkin. He was actually born. Reb Chaim was born in 1945 in Shanghai. And his father, if you look at the pictures of the mirror, you'll see somebody with a long beard and with Bochrim. That's his father. His grandfather was the Pinsker Rov, the Beis Aaron. Reb Chaim lives in Bayit Vagan, and he knows the story very well. When he asked me to, I met with him, and he always knew the story. It's not a chidush why he did it, but he didn't know why Sugihara did the visas. The story about a little boy invited him for Hanukkah is known. He just didn't know that he's alive. So I told him that he's alive. He's 91 when we saw him. He lives in Ramat HaSharon. I had gone to see Soli immediately, and I interviewed Soli, and I spent a lot of time with Soli. The little boy. So then I told Reb Chaim Balkin that he's alive, and he became very emotional. And we went to see him like the next few days. It was Yom Yerushalayim. We actually went to see Soli. This is Reb Chaim and the Rebbetzin when they went to see Soli. I'm sorry it's not a bit bigger. When Reb Chaim, he's the mashgiach of Ateres, when he saw Soli, he became very emotional and he was crying. He said to him, "It's because of you I'm alive." It was unbelievable. It was one of the most. I videoed the whole encounter. It was very, very emotional. This is the Rebbetzin, and this is Soli's wife. This is Soli today. Soli told me, we won't go much longer, but I'll just tell you. Soli told me that the Japanese ambassador wants to meet with him. So I phoned the embassy, the Japanese embassy, and I said, "Please, I really want to be there." And
the Japanese ambassador wants you to meet?
I wanted to meet the Japanese ambassador wanted to come visit Soli. So I phoned the embassy. I said, "Please, I want to be there. It's very important that I'm there." They asked me to give them my CV. I did. The Japanese ambassador came with his entourage from his secretary, and they met with Soli. And he spent 2 hours with Soli. This is Soli today. This is the Japanese ambassador. He came to see him. It was unbelievable. He actually organized the meeting, a very interesting person. And the Japanese ambassador gave Soli a letter of appreciation for, this is Soli with a letter from the Japanese embassy. I'm sorry it's also small, but this is thanking Soli for his contribution. Now, Soli has never ever said, "It's because of me, my schut." He's never ever said he's a very tzunah person. People come to him, he's never advertised what he did. He just wrote a book called Light One Candle where he mentions the story. But the Japanese ambassador came to his home. People come visit him. You have the grandson of Sugihara and the grandchildren coming to visit Soli. He's a very tzunah person. So he's 92, and what happened is that he's, at the age of 92, he's on Facebook. And it's incredible. And I'm just going to show this will be near our end. And he wrote there, Vehish Amda. And he said, if only we had our own country 10 years before, my mother and my brother wouldn't have been murdered. So if only we had our own country 10 years before, in other words, not 1948, in 1938, my mother and my brother wouldn't have been murdered. Soli actually went through, when I asked him, have you got regrets? He said, of course. Because what happened is that he actually went through the Kovno ghetto. Then I asked him the regret. He said how he would have made sure that his father took a visa. But the thing is that his father had a business, like most Yidden had businesses, and he couldn't sell it, so they stayed behind. He said, my mother and my brother were murdered. I went through the ghetto. Then I was sent to Dachau. And I was actually in Dachau before I came here. And I met with a non-Jewish tour guide who shows people the death march, and he has Sodi's book about the death march. Anyway, he said, I had to go through the Kovno ghetto. My brother was murdered. It was terrible. So I said, definitely I regret. I would have made sure my father took the visa, but who was to know? Anyway, so he puts on Facebook, Vehisha Amda, and he says, if only we had our country 10 years before. So what happened is, I don't know if you read Mishpacha, the magazine Mishpacha, so they featured Yonatan Razal. And Yonatan Razal, they asked, what is your best song, who influenced you? Yeah. And then they say, what is your passion? And with Yonatan, they say, his passion is the mirror. So I phoned Yonatan, and I said, Yonatan, can I come over to your home, and can you just play Vehisha Amda for Soli and dedicate it? He said, no. He said, I have to come and visit. So this is I took Yonatan to visit Soli, and here's Yonatan playing Vehisha Amda to Soli. It was madhim.
Do you see him? You're in touch?
Very much.
Oh, yeah?
So this was...
When did you meet him first?
2 years ago. It changed my life. So he came to play Vehisha Amda for Soli. It was unbelievable.
Wow, look at what. Incredible.
So, Bimet Tadaraba, I'm going to tell Soli that I'm telling his story here in Venice, and I can't thank you enough for giving me the honor to...
No, we can't thank you enough. It's inspiring, like one step.
Somebody who did a little tzedakah and
my old Hanukkah guilt in times like that, it's not those.
זה מדהים, hey?
מדהים, מרגש, מדהים.
רב, תודה רבה.
וזה סיפור של הפרשה, מצווה גוררת מצווה. יודעים של הפרשה שלי, ממש. ועשית על זה סרט?
כן.
יש לך סרט מכל הסיפור? כן.
I'll give you my card. עשיתי על יוטיוב.
יש לך ביוט? איך אני נמצא את זה?
יש פלאפון? I'll show you now. Wait. Should have done it a bit bigger. Okay, I'll set for the video.
משה, אמור להתקשר.
קשר?